Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Thursday, September 29. We normally have Monday meetings this week, a Thursday meeting because of the holiday that occurred on Monday. So we have a long list of things to do tonight, but first and foremost among them, and the first item on our agenda is the promotion ceremony for Detective Jonathan Smith. And I invite Chief Grutzner to introduce the evening's event.
Good evening, Mayor Shearer, Village Trustees, Village Administrator Morrissey, members, family, and friends of the Pleasantville Police Department and the Pleasantville community. A note before we begin. Your Pleasantville Police Department is in the midst of great change. In the recent past, we have brought in new faces to replace people who have moved on to other endeavors. Some of the people we have lost have been pillars of this community, people who served proudly and honorably for decades. Police officers of all ranks, parking enforcement officers, crossing guards, and even our administrative assistant have had to be replaced, and we are not done yet. Moving forward, the lieutenants and I are committed to an inclusive process which gives opportunities for the department to grow and become even stronger. I feel lucky to have more chances in the coming months to promote and hire the future of this department. So as the mayor mentioned, we are here this evening to take the next step in that process and publicly swear in one of our officers, John Smith, to the position of detective. John has been with us for a little over 5 years, and we believe he will seamlessly transition into his new role. Before I talk about John, however, I would like to take a few minutes to talk about the position, how important it is, and how it fits into the larger picture of our police department. When Detective Zane was promoted to sergeant back in March, we, as the administrators of the department, had a decision to make. We were not operating at full capacity, and the timing of filling the position was tricky. We decided to leave the position open for the time being to keep patrol as close to fully staffed as possible. Obviously, our caseload did not diminish, and I would like to personally thank Detective Sergeant Garcia, Detective Charletti, and Lieutenant Woolman for their diligence and professionalism in running our detective division one person short for the better part of 6 months. At the time, we believed that the best case scenario was to maintain our high level of service throughout the summer, and I believe we accomplished that. However, we knew that as the schools reopened, the position would need to be filled. Our detectives are our case managers. They must develop and maintain professional relationships with people from all different disciplines, but none more important than our schools. Our detectives push into the classrooms and are a visible presence for our students, both inside and outside of school hours. Detectives work with staff and administration to provide best possible outcomes for students in any number of situations. Additionally, detectives must be prepared to work with their parents so that children can grow and learn and sometimes make mistakes while knowing that their community supports them. When it came time to choose the person to fill the position, 4 candidates expressed interest. Lieutenant Gilmartin, Lieutenant Woolman, and I believe that each one could have done the job and done it well. Obviously, as the head of the department, that's a good problem to have. Ultimately, we decided that John was the best fit for the opportunity because he combines so many of the skills necessary to complete that mission. John has great instincts, a deep knowledge of police work and procedure, and prior experience in investigations. He has always been an active police officer, regularly initiating investigations and developing leads during his time in patrol. He has never shied away from going the extra mile to follow up or to bring closure to an incident. He has passion for his work and compassion for those who need our assistance. In short, we believe that were a family in Pleasantville to need an advocate to help them navigate a situation, Detective John Smith would be the right man for the job. And that is why tonight I'm here to recommend him to you for our next position as detective.
I sneak around always. John, can I invite you to the podium? It's just as the chief said, it's always a proud moment when one of our own achieves the next rank in the police department, and as is always the case, a lot of your colleagues have come, as well as family members, to both celebrate this moment, but to honor the good work you have done that has earned you this new spot. So if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jonathan Smith,
I, Jonathan Smith,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Code of the Village of Pleasantville,
and the Code of the Village of Pleasantville,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of detective
the duties of detective
for the Village of Pleasantville
for the Village of Pleasantville
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, Detective Smith. Am I correct in believing Jessica and Paxton and Penelope are here?
Yes, we are.
And maybe you all could gather and have the opportunity to stick a pin into this man's lapel. That's fine, whatever. In 25 years, we will be pinning him. Congratulations, Detective. Congratulations, Chief, Lieutenant Gil Martin, Lieutenant Woolman, and the entire crew. As the Chief indicated, a lot of change going on, but it's being managed with such professionalism and such spirit that you make us all proud.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
So as I often do, I remind you that you are more than welcome to stay for the very exciting balance of our meeting, but we don't expect it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good night, thank you.
Night.
A few announcements to make. Maybe first and foremost, the goings on this weekend. Paul, as the impresario of the block party, can you update everybody on how the weather has bollocksed up our plans?
Well, I guess that's why it's good to have a rain date when you're planning stuff. So we try to hold off to see if we could manage to keep Saturday, but just the weather just kept getting worse for Saturday. The forecast, so we decided that we'd rather hold an event on Sunday. Looks like there still could be possible some rain, but it's about 22 to 25%. So we decided to move it to Sunday. Everything is staying essentially the same. The timeline of the events, we're still planning on closing the streets here on Wheeler Avenue and on Washington Avenue at 2 p.m. However, starting at 12 p.m., we're going to start getting all the cars to stop parking there. The event on Washington Avenue has a car show that'll go till about 6 o'clock. There's still going to be a DJ. Fire department's still participating. That's on that end. We'll have face painters for the kids on that end. We'll have a magician, person who's doing balloon animals. Over here on Wheeler, we're going to have the fun zone for the kids that starts at 2 and goes till 6. Different rides, it's all free of charge. We'll also have a lot of our vendors are still coming out on Sunday, and they're going to set up just to all different types. We have some preschools, we have realty companies, we have some electrical companies, and just a lot of different businesses that are offering their services to show you what they have here. At the same time, we'll still have the food area and the parking lot right next to Holy Innocents. We've made that area hangout food area. There's also, that's where Soul and I believe Foley's will also be selling beer. We're going to be very strict about, and anyone who wants to purchase beer has to get a special wristband that there will be security guards there checking that nobody without that wristband can have any kind of alcoholic beverage in their hand. And it's a controlled area where only in that area people can consume alcohol. It's not going to be as if people can walk up and down Wheeler with open containers or anything like that. So we hope you can come by and enjoy and get to see what this village has to offer, but also get to come be a part of the block party. Bring your family, your grandkids, bring your parents, bring siblings, and invite others. So we look forward to seeing you, everyone.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for all the work you have done, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, all your colleagues, and to all the stores and businesses that have been involved. It's a big undertaking, and as is always the case, the Chamber of Commerce puts their shoulder behind the wheel, and it's much appreciated.
And also, of course, I definitely want to thank the village with Eric and Alyssa, and then all the head of the departments of DPW, the police department. I don't think we could put an event like this, and it's difficult and challenging, and I appreciate all that extra time that you all put into it. So we really, really thank you, not just as someone representing the businesses in Pleasantville, but also as a resident. It's exciting that our village does this for our residents, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Related, a little outside our wheelhouse, but related to the whole activities of the weekend, we've been in constant conversation, Eric and Mike Newman with the school district, because this is also the Pleasantville homecoming weekend for the school district, and all kinds of activities planned. And just update anybody who might be listening, they've made the decision to move the football game that was supposed to be 6 p.m. on Saturday at Parkway Field, has now been moved forward a day, and is going to be Friday, tomorrow at 7 p.m. instead of Saturday, to try to avoid the rain and the wet field. So the football game is now at 7 p.m. And the block party is now on Sunday. And so those two events, which were going to be on the same day, are now 2 days apart. So there's also, for the homecoming weekend, as there has been in past years and is happily back this year, the Rotary Club holding a pancake breakfast with revenues contributed to various charitable causes. That takes place in the middle school cafeteria from 8 a.m. to noon. So encourage folks to return to that tradition and start their Saturday at the Rotary Club's pancake breakfast. Farm market obviously happening, as they always do, on Saturday down in Memorial Plaza. A whole lot of people coming back to Pleasantville for homecoming weekend. So it's a happening scene in Pleasantville this weekend. Just annoying that the weather hasn't completely cooperated. So a couple of other points I wanted to make. If you drive by the island at Edgewood and Manville, you will see that after a month and a half absence of the big tree, we now have back a pretty big tree, not as big as the one we had to take down, but thanks to Mike Newman, the Parks Department, the DPW Department, and our consulting arborist, we have a new Norway spruce that arrived 2 days ago and was planted, or yesterday it was, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
It was planted on Wednesday with our team, and you can drive by and see it. It's, I think, a pretty nice tree, and we are feverishly feeding it and watering it to give it a good start. We're going to have some events associated with the holiday lighting to honor the arrival of the new tree, and maybe start a couple of new traditions as we watch its growth over time. But the old tree was leaning heavily and was suffering, and we had it looked at in every which way and backwards, and there was really no way to avoid replacing it. So we have a new and healthy tree with hopefully a long life before it, and can restore the traditions that are associated with that tree in that location. A couple of weeks ago, I attended and testified at a county hearing about the county airport master plan. That has been in the works for a while, and they set up a public hearing and comment period at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center at Chappaqua Crossing. There was another one a week or two later in Greenwich, Connecticut, just over the border, in part to get feedback from all of those folks who are outside Westchester but very much affected by the airport. So, short version of a long story, the activity at the airport is currently capped at 240 persons per hour in commercial flights. That's been the case for a very long time. And that cap is voluntary, but it is mostly respected by the commercial scheduled airliners. Almost all of the growth in air traffic, which is affecting our region, not so much directly over the village of Pleasantville, but very directly affecting folks with Pleasantville addresses in the town of Mount Pleasant. A very substantial increase over the years in private aircraft. And when I say private aircraft, we're not talking about two folks in a Cessna. We're talking about substantial private jets. And one interesting thing to note, and the folks who are in the flight path were very clear about it in their commentary and have been all along, what is apparent is that there are many private jets being used by folks who are of means to do so. And there's a rush hour on Friday afternoon for folks going places. There's a rush hour on Sunday with folks coming back. And then there has been conflict with agencies that are essentially presenting themselves as private aviation, but are effectively selling seats in the same manner scheduled airlines do, but operating under the guise of private aviation outside the realm of the current cap on the number of passengers per hour. So, long story short, I think that it's a perfectly reasonable position that the town of Newcastle has taken and that I supported on our behalf as well, that we view the airport as a significant asset to the community. There are many good things about it. Many of our residents take significant advantage of it and find it a convenient way to travel. It seems pretty clear that the scheduled airlines are not really the significant source of the problem, but there has been a very significant ramp up in major jet traffic and private aviation. And it seems reasonable to say that the folks under the flight path and the environment in Westchester, both noise and pollution and the environment around the airport, ought not be sacrificed in order to make it easier for a whole lot of people to get to their distant weekend house quicker and easier. Isn't more power to you if you're in a position to do that, but my final comment in the public hearing was that what we need is fewer planes with more people on them. And what we've gotten in the last 10 years is more planes with fewer people on them. So any comments anybody else has, you can check on the Westchester County website, westchestergov.com, and just search on Airport Master Plan, and there are plenty of opportunities to weigh in on that and comment if you are so inclined. And again, it hasn't, based on the current flight paths, been a huge issue within the village, but it is a very big issue very close to the village, including folks who are our friends and neighbors and colleagues in the town of Mount Pleasant. So keep an eye out for that and weigh in on it if you are so inclined. The intention of the county is to develop a master plan document, which will then get submitted to the feds. The airport's growth and development is in a significant way controlled by the Federal Aviation Administration, but Washington is certainly sensitive to the views of the counties that are hosts to these airports. And 5 stars to George Latimer and his team for having, I think, set up a very thoughtful process to respect the value of the airport and its convenience to our residents, but also to try to set up a template where its future growth could be less impactful.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
So is the idea that the private airlines are not being held accountable to the 240 person cap, or just that
They're not covered by it.
They're not covered by it.
Private aviation is not covered by it. And,
Okay. And so is one proposal to include them?
I don't know whether there's even the theoretical capacity to do that. It may be that private aviation falls into a different category in terms of the regulatory world. I think it does. I'm certainly not the expert on it, but it's an interesting question.
It's certainly an issue that people who are concerned about climate change are paying more and more attention to. The abundant use of private jets that has a disproportional impact on.
Yeah,
On our carbon
that airport has always been home to corporate jets, companies at the scale of IBM and PepsiCo
Yeah.
and the like that have their own jets. But the other thing that has emerged in recent years, it's been going on for a while, but is what's called fractional ownership,
Mhm.
where individuals or entities that are not in a position to own a jet essentially buy a timeshare piece of it,
yeah.
and so they can travel on a private jet when the jet is available to them, and that I think has worked its way down to the level of the sort of gray area of, is this a private jet with fractional ownership, or is this essentially a scheduled airline selling seats under the
Right.
guise of
So this is NetJets, that type of thing?
that type of thing?
Okay.
Exactly right. So again, I don't mean to suggest that those services aren't providing an advantage as well, but what's happened is that the life of folks who are willing to pay quite a bit more for a seat now have an opportunity to fly from a private hangar in private aircraft and not go through the process that most people go through when they're dealing with an airport departure. So not trying to harm anybody's interest other than to say the community's interest at large ought not be sacrificed just for the convenience of the relatively few people who can afford to sort of evade the guidelines that have collectively been created over a long time to sort of mitigate the impacts. All right, then the other thing I wanted to report, as you probably have seen, is that pavement has been broken on our Manville Road project. Eric, you want to give us the update on that?
Yes, sure. So right now they're working on between Wheeler Avenue and Tompkins Avenue on the Jacob Burns side. This week we replaced 2 fire hydrants. That seems like a simple maneuver, but quite complicated. We have to shut down water in the corridor for 2 days to do that. We also replaced a malfunctioning water valve that dates back to the 1940s. So not only a pedestrian safety project, but updating some of our water infrastructure as well. But they are going to be pouring the curb lines next week, reconstructing the sidewalk, and then they'll jump to the other side and do that sidewalk, and then with the remaining months, get over the bridge and widen that sidewalk. This intersection here at Memorial Plaza and Grant Street, that work will wait until the spring.
When do we think this work, the one that we're doing, is going to go till?
Most likely late November, early December.
At which point, the winter, it'll all be closed up and completed. They're not going to leave open pits and
Correct.
the like.
Correct.
They'll finish what they can
Yeah.
before the snow flies and then pick up again in the spring.
That's right.
Among the issues is that the traffic signals required for the Grant Street intersection are a long lead time item, right?
7 months.
So that is in the works, and hopefully come spring, those will be available too. So at any rate, the details of that project and the plans for it are available on our website at pleasantville-ny.gov. We've said that a lot of times, lots of people have taken a look, but if you're interested, you can find them. Are they still in the special projects folder there?
Yep. Projects and initiatives.
Okay.
One quick question about those diagrams. I couldn't tell, Eric, if the sidewalk is getting wider besides the bump outs. But now that I see the work done, I can't tell. Is it? Do you know? 'Cause
The
I know the
sidewalks.
bump outs are coming out.
Yeah, the sidewalks are getting wider, but not as wide as the bump outs.
Okay. So
And the
just
sidewalk over the bridge is getting substantially wider.
Yes, that's the biggest widening.
Right,
sidewalk
over the bridge,
over the okay. Got
over
it.
the train tracks. Yeah. So,
Closest to Pub
Right,
Street.
but the one they're working on right now will just get a little bit wider.
Correct.
Except for the bump outs. Okay.
yeah. And let me just give a shout out to the stores and businesses that are affected nearby. This week, the Burns Film Center was primarily the one affected, including having to shut down for a couple of days because we had to cut off their water to do this hydrant work. And just shout out to Gary Vandermeer, their building guy, who he and the folks he works with at Burns have been cooperative and helpful in the spirit of the improvements we're making. So,
Absolutely.
then Eric, what's the latest, or do you know the latest on when we can imagine that the sawmill single lane thing will be over?
I knew you were going to ask me
And we're
that.
going to hold you to it.
I knew you were going to
It's
ask
your
me.
fault, right?
To be honest, I can't get I don't think anyone is ready to say at DOT.
Yeah. Headline news.
Yeah, right. I would presume by the end of this year, if not earlier.
I mean, it seems like it's getting pretty
They're getting close. They
So-
are getting close.
Related but unrelated, all of us, I think, have been talking about traffic issues in the village, and all of us have been hearing from members of the community who are concerned about traffic issues in the village. And we know that from our own lives, and we know that from all of you. One piece of it is clearly the detours that are coming through the village for folks trying to avoid the sawmill. That's not the whole story, for sure, but it's going to help us understand the real change dynamics in traffic to get that variable out of the picture and see how it goes.
That's right.
So, all right. Then, quick update on the pool. Steve Rimkunis has issued the drawings to the county Department of Health.
Correct. Yep. Drawings are at the county for the first round of review. That can take 4 to 6 months. Typically, they respond and they add comment, and then we have to respond to those comments, and that takes another month or two to finalize. So we're probably, I want to say, about 2 months, maybe a little bit more than that, from our first submittal.
And we remain hopeful that we'll be able to get this thing out to bid with the idea of committing to a contractor sometime in the later winter.
Correct.
The thinking being we have a regular pool season with our existing pool through the course of 2023, but we have a contractor who's been committed to some months earlier, including the possibility that we offer some storage space for materials on our property so that they can order long lead time items and have them here to deal with these supply chain issues, with the hope, albeit fingers crossed, that right after the pool closes Labor Day of 2023, we have a contractor who rolls in and starts the work. And at the moment, that's feeling like a realistic plan. All right. Anybody else have other announcements of any kind?
I wanted to just update. Yesterday, I'm a part of the liaison for PCTV. So in the board, the village made wanted to do some recognitions of 3 board members that stepped away from their position, and we just wanted to make sure that we let everyone know how much their support, how much their service to PCTV and to the village over all these years. It was to Bernard Gordon, to Gigi Kopolak, and to Nick Antonacchio. They're no longer going to be on the board for PCTV, but they're still going to be a part of producing. But they did a lot of service for PCTV over 10 years easily. So I wanted to let everyone know that it was a great event, and was happy to be there.
Likewise, a shout out to Gigi, Bernie, and to Nick for all of those years of service. Anybody else have a report? All right. With that, let me also ask here, let me get back to the Zoom window, if there's anybody who is watching at the moment who has a public comment on a subject other than the public hearing we're about to enter. I encourage you to raise your hand in the chat and we will call upon you. But in the meantime, is there a motion to open the public hearing regarding introductory local law 8 of 2022 to amend chapter 185, section 13, subsection A, and chapter 185, attachment 1, concerning two-family dwellings in the two-family resident R2A district?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Welcome to the public hearing. Eric, you want to just give a quick summary? We have also on the call, in case we have the need for her to comment, Susan Favate of BFJ Planning, who has assisted us in crafting this. It's an issue that arose in part around the discussion of the subdivision of the old Baker property at 245 Bedford Road, where a large single property on a corner was purchased after the residents passed away, and then subdivided into 3 lots, one the old house, and then 2 lots on the Clark Street side with one on the corner and one inboard. At the time, because those lots were cleaved off from an R2A district, they were both zoned R2A. And what we propose here, you can report, Eric, is to modify the terms of the R2A to manifest what was clearly the intent at the time it was created.
Right, and that would enable 2-family houses to still be built on the corridor or properties that abut Bedford Road. Susan, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, do you want to give the 30,000-foot view?
Sure. I'll just dive right into that. It's a fairly minor targeted change to the zoning code in terms of the text in the R2A zoning district, as well as the area and bulk table. As the mayor indicated, it is arising from concerns that were raised from the neighborhood along the streets that come off of Bedford Road. And so the proposal is to, as Eric said, still maintain this as a 2-family zone. 2-family homes would still be allowed as permitted uses, with only the one change that they have to front on Bedford Road. So they need their entire frontage on Bedford Road, even if they're a corner lot. As I think you all know, corner lots from a zoning perspective are considered to have 2 front yards. So they can generally choose which street they front on, but this would require 2-family homes to front on Bedford Road. You have before you an EAF Part 1 and 2 environmental assessment form. So we did look at what the impacts of this change would be. Again, it's a fairly minor change. It's also a very built out zone. So there's not a huge impact, but we looked at the impact both on the existing 2-family homes. We want to see if there's any impact on conformity of those, as well as future development of 2-family homes. We did find that there is one home, 2-family dwelling, I think it's 270 Bedford Road, that it's a current 2-family home that would not meet that frontage requirement. However, looked at it a little bit deeper today, and it looks like it already doesn't meet the lot width requirement. So I don't know that there's a significant impact there. In any case, it exists. It would become a legally pre-existing non-conforming 2-family home. That is the only impact on the existing 2-family homes along Bedford. In terms of future development, there were only 4 lots along the corridor that could potentially be subdivided for future development of 2-family homes. On 2 of those lots, there are existing fairly large single-family homes. They're in good shape. It seems unlikely that they're likely to turn over soon, but in any case, if they did, they would need to meet the new requirement. And then the only other of the 4 that is sort of in play is the one the mayor mentioned, the old Baker property. That has actually already been approved, so it's sort of off the table actually. So that leaves the Girl Scout property as the final of the 4 that has the potential to be subdivided for future 2-family home development. And basically the impact of this proposal would still be to allow there to be 2-family homes on that property. It's a fairly large and deep, most importantly deep property that fronts on Bedford Road, but also has frontage on Great Oak Lane. And so the impact would be that instead of the potential to possibly build 4 2-family homes, they would only be able to get 2 2-family homes that would front on Bedford. The overall residential density on that site would remain at 8 units. It's just the combination of 2 and the single-family homes that they would get. The 2-family homes, again, would have to be fronting on Bedford, and then the single-family homes would be in the back. So, again, same overall residential density, just slightly restricts the number and placement of 2-family homes. So that is essentially it. I think your role tonight is to have the public hearing open and just listen to public comment. And I'm here to answer questions.
I thank you for that, Susan. Again, Susan Favati of BFJ Planning. BFJ has been our planning consultant for some years going forward on matters of zoning and matters of major development. So, are there any comments from the board before we engage comments from attendees? There being none, start with folks in the room. If you have a comment, please come to the mic. Let us know who you are and what your address is, and we will be pleased to hear what you have to say. After everybody in the room has spoken, I'll invite anybody who's here on Zoom to raise their hand, and we'll elevate you to a speaker to hear your thoughts. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Peter Russell, 114 Ashland Avenue, Pleasantville, New York. I spoke in opposition to this legislation earlier this year, and I understand you're going forward with it. My opposition is twofold. One is I really don't think the legislation is necessary. As Susan said, it's actually kind of minor. But I think if you put it in the context of what I see as the need for this village to have the capacity for a range of housing types, a range of price points where people can come in and get started, and two-family homes are a lot of times a place where families can get started, whether it's rental or ownership. And sometimes we know there's a an owner who has a rental unit, so it helps people get going and to build some wealth. The third concern I had was that this seemed to be a little of a tenor of disparaging the notion of two-family homes compared to single-family homes. I think a healthy village needs, as I said, a range of housing types, including two-family and multifamily. And Pleasantville has a pretty good range. So I'd be concerned of a signal kind of pushing back against that. And when I was looking at the website, if I understood correctly, I saw that one of the comments that came in, I think from one of the other boards, was raising the question whether this provision, which is now applying to the R2A, should be considered for the R zone. So that would concern me, that if you're taking it not just for this limited Bedford Road corridor, but going further. And my final comment is to say thank you very much for getting going with the Manville Road project with bump outs and the safety sidewalks. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Let me just speak for myself, which is to say I am sympathetic to all that you have said. And it is worth noting that there are quite a number of two-family homes embedded into neighborhoods that are otherwise single-family and have been there for a long time and been there very successfully and without any difficulty. I think one of the issues that led to this was the concern on the part of some neighborhoods that there was the potential for a more commercially oriented development to be injected into neighborhoods as opposed to the sort of natural evolution of things that perhaps reflects a development pattern in Pleasantville in generations past. Amid the reality that I think we have been quite accommodating as a community to new rental housing in various other places, I think this proposal, modest though it is respectful of very significant concerns by neighbors in some of those neighborhoods. Whether one agrees with them or not, we are here to answer the needs of the community. So, other speakers? All right. Anybody on the Zoom list wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Bernie, I see your hand. Yes, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank you for the lovely presentation last night at PCTV. It was an honor to be a member of the board, and I wish all the best for PCTV going forward.
I know you do, so just to be clear, we know who you are, Bernie Gordon, former mayor. But for the record and the minutes, can you announce your address?
Okay, with regard to the proposal that you're considering, I want to thank the board for moving quickly on this issue. I understand and appreciate what Peter Russell said, and I think that requires long-range planning. We're going to change the nature of single-family residences and areas, which should be done with the community in a long-range plan so that everybody understands the issues that involve in changing a single-family zone into a two-family or a multi-family zone with regard to parking, density, and all those other issues that people are concerned with when they buy a home. I think we all can appreciate the difficulty and the cost of housing for first-time home buyers. And I think it's an issue that we all have to deal with, but that is not an issue of zoning, it's an issue more of the economy and all the other factors that go into that. So again, I'd like to express my support for the change, and I thank the board for moving forward.
Thank you, Bernie. Susan Chapungo, let me add you. Okay, there you go. Susan, are you there?
I'm here. Good evening, board. I'd like to ask a clarifying question, and then I would like to speak to the proposed local law, if that would be okay. The question, just for clarification, because Mr. Gordon just named a concern about multifamily. Multifamily is not permitted in this zone. It is only two-family homes maximum that are under discussion, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I think just clarification because there is so much concern about overdevelopment in the village.
Let me say that there are some pre-existing homes on Bedford Road that have more than 2 units in them. But the R2A zoning allows two-family, and that would be the controlling factor going forward.
Correct. So this idea that the concern of additional multifamily homes are not a concern because they're not currently permissible under the zone that is under consideration.
More than 2, right?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So my thoughts about this are that this new local law would reduce the ability for families to, like Mr. Russell said, would reduce the ability for families who have less economic means to live in the part of our village that we prize and promote as walkable. And I don't think that that is something that needs to be limited even further to the most well-off in our midst. I understand a lot of the concerns that have been expressed, mostly on social media, but through other conversations regarding density and infrastructure, and specifically concerns about overcrowding our schools. And so I just think it's really important in the public hearing to note that the multifamily homes, townhomes, condos are not under consideration for this zone. And so not to conflate what we're talking about. And so the other concerns about aesthetic and style, which I understand, were brought up, that Susan, I remember your first name because it's the same as mine, but I'm forgetting your last name, but she spoke to the sense that this is not going to change the density for this zone. Even if they put all of the units as two-family homes at the property that currently has the Girl Scout building, she indicated that there was not a significant change of density. So those concerns, I don't think, are the major issue there. And when it comes to style and keeping the character of the village, we already have this character overlay district. And so the style and the aesthetic of these houses will be artfully handled through the work of our planning commission and the board of architectural review. And so the tone and style, I don't think are going to change significantly. You've already mentioned there's only 4 properties, and really there's only 1 additional property in play. And so I'll just reiterate that I agree with Mr. Russell that this law seems really unnecessary and maybe a response to this growing rhetoric of fear about some of the larger developments that are happening. In regards to economics, the last two Board of Trustees work sessions, we've been discussing the need for affordable after-school care related to Panther Club. And so we're currently discussing expanding that after-school program because families are expressing that need, but families are also expressing the need for affordable housing. And if we're addressing issues of affordability and economics, it seems counter to our goal, in my opinion, to enact legislation that will continue to ensure that the cost of living in Pleasantville continues to be unattainable for even more people. While current residents are asking for our government to expand their services because they need assistance economically affording childcare. Pleasantville is expensive, we've already named it. I'm constantly hearing about ways that people are responding to the changes in the village. But one of the things I've heard is that families that moved here 30 or 40 years ago are concerned that families like theirs, average earners, not the top 10 or 5%, can't afford homes in our community. So reducing the number of potential two-family homes, I think, will continue to decrease affordability and economic diversity in our village even further. And I think that the ability to live in this downtown area is incredible, and it should be expanded to more people of various economic means. The other thing that's happening amongst families is that more and more families are single parents, and more families would like to be able to afford one parent to stay home. And so having a two-family home can help make this possible because of the affordable aspect by having that rental income or dividing the mortgage with a second family. It's something that I think can help create stability for the children in these families, that when families have economic change, they would not have to leave Pleasantville necessarily, and families can remain in schools. Children can keep their friends, and parents can benefit from the close social ties that we have in Pleasantville, specifically when they need those the most, rather than having to relocate into a more affordable space. I've spoken with many residents of Great Oak Lane. I encourage them to come tonight. Most of the ones that I spoke to are not in favor of this, although I can't force them to come and speak. The ones who were not home or declined to speak to me, I can't say what they think, but I don't think it's in the best interest of Pleasantville. I think it's a small, unnecessary change that's really brought out of some fear of other issues happening. Thank you.
Can I just get her address?
Yeah, Susan, could
Please.
for the minutes, could you give us your address?
49 Sutton Place.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Susan. Let me just add a couple of pieces of information. One is I try not to miss an opportunity to comment when folks say the schools are overcrowded or potentially so. Michael already referred to this earlier in our work session, and the school district has done the calculations for this year. There are currently right at this moment, the total enrollment in the school district is 130 kids fewer than they had 10 years ago.
We're also lower than
Yes,
that.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that people in the village are concerned
No, I
and
get it.
saying
I
that
get
that's a concern.
Right.
But it shouldn't be because our schools are at a lower enrollment, and so it's not needing to be addressed.
Yeah, the only reason I throw it in there is that, there have been bouncing around on social media, oh my God, the schools are already bursting at the seams, and that's not the case. So the more places the real numbers get out, the better off we are, and the better basis everybody has going forward. The other thing I wanted to say is we'll see whether in the end that entity currently in contract with the Girl Scout building goes through the project, but what is proposed there in draft by the potential buyer of the Girl Scout building is to knock down the building, which is in need of serious rehabilitation if someone were to keep it, and to build two-family houses fronting Bedford Road consistent with this code, and then 4 single-family homes in lots that are rather similar to the existing lots in the older area of Great Oak Lane that would face Great Oak. So that's what's under discussion right now. We'll see whether that plan is what gets consummated by the potential buyer. But we would end up with two single-family homes, two family homes, and four single-family.
So it seems like we're enacting an unnecessary law out of concern for development that's not happening. And unlikely to happen.
Well, I can say that proposed development, I think, I don't know whether it would be different, absent the discussion that's been going on for the last few months, generated by the Clark Street projects. But I think it was clear that that was likely to be a very acceptable proposal, and a proposal to build two family homes on the Great Oak side was likely to engender more controversy. I'm just speculating about that. So, I mean, in the end, regardless of what position anybody takes about the pros or cons of this, as Susan Pavati already mentioned, its impact is minor. As already described, there are very few parcels in play where this would even be a potential issue. So for those who are sorry to see this modest diminution in two-family houses, the good news is it is a very modest diminution in the potential. And for those who are in favor of this, it is respectful of the concerns that were voiced very strongly by a couple of neighborhoods. So,
Can I ask Susan Favate a question? I just have a question about the minimum size requirements for these new lots that are being created. So for example, on Great Oak Lane, where the Girl Scout building is, how are they able to determine how many houses can be established on that property?
Sure. The current regulation for the R28 zone requires a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet for single family and 10,000 square feet for two family. There's also a slight difference on lot width, so it's 50 feet for single family and 75 feet for two family. That's existing and that's not proposed to change. You know, we did look at potentially adjusting lot size and width requirements, and what we came down with is that there was just too much potential to make existing two-family homes non-conforming, and we certainly didn't want to zone them out. It is a two-family zone, and there's a sense that it should remain, that there should remain the potential for there to be two-family homes in that part of the village. So there are no changes proposed to the lot area and width.
So does that mean if the current proposal on Great Oak Lane is to create four single-family homes facing Great Oak Lane, that if in some hypothetical universe somebody wanted to put two family homes there and we didn't make this change, they would only be able to build two family homes?
That's correct. That's correct. Under the current regulation, they could either build two family homes facing Great Oak Lane or four single family homes.
Okay. So I have to admit, for me, that sort of raises the issue of what the objection to the two family homes in that situation is, by contrast with four single family homes. I'm just putting that on the table.
I mean, I think we've heard.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
We've heard
I can take this. I mean, as I understand it, there were some concerns raised when the Clark Street property was under proposal about additional impacts on those side streets going into the neighborhood, primarily from traffic, just more cars, because those are narrower streets and they tend to be a little bit less trafficked. I will say, from a site planning perspective, it's generally nice to have, whether you have a multifamily, two-family, even in some cases single-family, if you have a corner lot on a larger street like Bedford, and they have a corner on a smaller, narrower street, it's actually very nice to have the frontage be on the larger street so that you can have your driveway in the back. It makes it function pretty well. So from a site planning perspective, we think that actually is a good condition. But it primarily, as I understand it, was concerns about traffic and just greater level of activity on those very narrow side streets.
Well, and the other piece of it for each of our neighborhoods in the sort of central older district of the community is they all have their specific bits of complexity. Clark Street, for example, has a significant impact for parking for Soldiers and Sailors Field, and it has a significant impact on parking on the Bedford Road side for activities at the synagogue. When you go down to Great Oak Lane, there's a significant impact there, obviously, for activities that go on at St. John's Church. In years past, a significant impact from the old rec center, now no longer in that position. But again, same story. You go to Guyan Street and Academy Street, tremendous impacts for parking and activity for the schools. All of our neighborhoods confront those kinds of, I call them conflicts, but they're both conflicts and the gift of this community, that all of these things are stuffed in pretty darn close to one another. And that has contributed, I think, to not only a walkable community, but a community with a pretty strong sense of civic connection. So that said, if you live on some of these streets, there are significant impacts at some times of the day when these activities are going on at schools, at playing fields, at churches, or houses of worship. So all those things go into play, and I know, certainly having talked to a lot of the neighbors on Clark Street, that all of those impacts were on their mind, and which inevitably cause concern when you talk about anything that is going to add new activities that weren't there before. So.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm feeling a little stupid here. In what way would the two-family lots contribute more traffic than single-family?
I mean, I think the concern was
lots.
you'd end up with 4 families and however many cars 4 families have, as opposed to 2 families.
But it sounds like, at least in the case of Great Oak Lane, you're ending up with 4 families either way. Just
I think they're,
combined,
I think they're different
just
cases.
a different configuration.
You could. There's also obviously concern about how they look, and that was an issue in Clark Street. So, I mean, honestly, my personal view of this is that I'm respectful of how those folks felt. I've talked to a lot of them. We've kicked around the issues. I've made points both in support of their view and also challenging them. But these are tight neighborhoods with engaged residents, and I'm respectful in the end of their strong feelings about it. Bernie, you had a further thought?
Yes, I just want to point out 2 things. One is that I respect the idea that you want more affordable housing, but making a single-family house versus a 2-family house, I don't think represents an affordable housing issue. You look at a lot of the new construction around this village, and that's not the issue. If you're going to, as I mentioned, I was involved with the writing of the special character overlay in the R2 district, and it was the intent to preserve Bedford Road. It was not the intent to change the character of single-family neighborhoods. Again, if the village decides that they want to change the single-family neighborhoods to make them more dense, that should be a long-range plan involving the entire village and the village residents to express their feelings, and not imposed by the village board. So I think that the zoning is a community process, and I think that this, in my opinion, this change in the zoning just preserves what the intention was. With regard to the single family on these side streets, one has to be concerned about the number of curb cuts and the amount of space involved. You have 2-family homes, you have 2 curb cuts. So, if you had 4 homes, but if you made them 2-family, you'd have 8 curb cuts. And that's a major consideration that has to be taken into account in planning, and not by piecemeal changes to the zoning. Thank you.
So,
Yeah,
go ahead, Mark.
yeah. If I could just pick up there, because that was the point that was most persuasive to me. That if the board wants to change the zoning toward higher density housing, that we should have that large conversation about the R1 zone, because there are places much closer to the village center than Great Oak in that zone. That Grove Street is right there, in the village center. So if that were the design, if that were the plan, then I think we'd have that conversation. Whereas this these two locations on Great Oak and Clark seem to be just the byproduct of, of these corner lots. So I would welcome that larger conversation.
Yeah, so let me just say a couple of things. One is I didn't want folks who are listening to, Bernie said it shouldn't be foisted upon the community by the village board. What we're doing here, this issue has arisen because this zoning has existed in this way for 30-ish years. It's just that at the time it was written, and Bernie was involved, as he reported, the question of what would happen if a big lot like the 245 Bedford lot got subdivided wasn't addressed in at the time. And so what we're doing here is respecting Bernie's point, which is to respect the intent of the zoning. I just didn't want people to think that we were, proposing some effort to really change the character of the community. No, we're trying to address what turned out to be kind of an unexpected result in existing zoning. But let me also say, and it's unrelated to this discussion, but lurking in the background, there remain many, many discussions, both in the county, regionally, in the state, and nationally, about affordable housing, about the lack of sufficient new housing being built, and there was an effort made in Albany at the last budget season to override local zoning in various ways that would have diminished our capacity to control circumstances like this with our own zoning. In the end, that didn't happen, but I can assure you that conversation will continue, and it's a significant issue. In fact, there's a big article in the New York Times today that focuses on a New York City project in the Throgs Neck section, but it touches on the broader issues that are in play. And, the question of whether historic single-family zoning has been, by intent or by accident, producing inadequate affordable housing. But as Bernie already mentioned, in these locations, for example, 2 lots cleaved off from the 245 Bedford location, the cost of those lots and the cost of construction mean that those are going to likely be high-end houses, 2-family or otherwise. No way not to argue that it's easier to afford that with one piece of the house to live in and one piece to rent, but they're definitely going to be expensive things to live in. And so how that gets played out in the coming few years and decade in New York State and in Westchester County is unknown at the moment, other than to say it's a very significant conversation. And one of the conversations is if the state were to override what has always been a home rule matter for local zoning, would that come along with some incentives or subsidies that would make possible housing that truly is more affordable? Because the market forces are likely not going to do that, other than the question that many more units might in the end produce lower prices in the end based on the supply and demand. But the other piece of that for folks in Pleasantville to be aware of, as you already are, is we've had a number of significant projects. The Toll Brothers project on Washington Avenue, which is an ownership project, 68 townhomes, of which 61 are market rate and 7 were defined and will in perpetuity be affordable houses. Those are ownership units. And in the case of the apartment buildings being built downtown, same story, 10% set aside for apartments that are, based on the HUD guidelines, affordable at 80% of the average median income. As you probably already know, 80% of the average median income in this region is enough money to make you pretty well off in lots of other places in America. But in Westchester County, especially in the last year or two, with prices spiking as they have, we're in a very complicated spiral. So stay tuned on all of that. Yes, sir, Mr. Russell.
Thank you. The conversation expanded a little bit beyond this.
It did, yes.
And
Which is,
I'm not trying to take you away from your business at hand, but
Right.
It might be useful to think about a couple of parameters that define Pleasantville in terms of housing. Looking at the 2000 and the 2020 census, we have roughly 2,600 units. We have about 2.6 persons per household. In a lot of the country, the number of people per household is declining. Pleasantville may be kind of flat. Of that total number of units or households, they're not exactly the same, but it's close. According to the 2000 census, we don't have the full detail for 2020 yet. Pleasantville had about 1,500 single-family units. That's 56%. It had about 34% in the 2 to 9 family category. Interestingly, about 1,900 of all the units, about 74%, were owner-occupied. So whether multifamily, 2 or 3 family, or single family, we have a high percentage of ownership as a characteristic. As of the 2000, only 722 units were renter only. I think the right context, and then Bernie raised the question of the village having a conversation about where you want this to go in the future. I'm not challenging a single family model at all. What I am urging is that we think about having more flexibility and range in the housing type and the housing stock we have here. It's not just the opportunity for young people to come here and get started. There are folks my age, and I can think of half a dozen people in town who are living in houses which are much too big for them. But they find it very hard to downsize and stay in the same community. And they place a high value in wanting to stay in Pleasantville. Ideally, to walk, to shopping and everything else. We don't have much stock for that. And so it's not just a matter of affordable housing for those who are most needy, but it's, I think, providing the kind of flexibility we need. And I think it is wrong to wait for the federal or the state government to come through with money. I think it's something the village needs to think about in terms of how we can help encourage that kind of development. And it may take some budget allocation. It may take some zoning actions. It may take some planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Let's see. Bernie, you had another thought? And then Susan next. Did you have another thought, Bernie?
Well, no, I don't disagree with anything that Peter said. I just, to reiterate that it's not an issue of affordability. Because, as you mentioned, the cost of construction, the cost of sales, and if you're talking about subsidized housing to make it more affordable. But as a senior, I appreciate what Peter said. The question is, do those seniors want single-family homes, or do they want affordable rental units, one floor, which all of us seem to want to go to in the end. So, but I think that this issue is that you're dealing with tonight just addresses an issue in preserving the nature of the single-family zones on those streets.
Thank you, Bernie. Susan, you had another thought? Susan Chipunko?
Yes, 2, I think, Mayor, you did address it a little bit, which is, I think we have to be really careful when we use the word affordable, because we have this official phrase of affordable housing where certain units get designated for this 80% income threshold. And then what I believe, Russell and I are talking about is just more affordable, not for people who fall under that threshold, but for people who are not interested in purchasing $1 million 6-bedroom house, but maybe a 2-bedroom as part of a 2-family home, or So more affordable as opposed to affordable, and to make sure that we're clear on the difference and what we're talking about. I am concerned to the point that was brought up about parking. I live on one of the most congested streets in Pleasantville. Try to come down my road between 2:30 and 3, you can't get here. There are houses that share driveways on Bedford when it hooks left at Broadway. And I think there's other ways to address the issue of traffic congestion, you know, to Nicole's point, which was whether it's 4 families in 4 single-family homes or 4 families in 2-family homes, you're gonna have the same number of cars approximately. You can have other more creative ways to resolve the curb cutout issue by having a single driveway that splits. You know, making sure that there's enough off-street parking for our housing, I think, is really important given the crowding that happens on our streets, specifically during school pickup and drop off. Not quite such a problem down as far as Great Oak, but definitely on Clark. And there's other ways to address that issue than limiting the type of house that can be built. And so I would urge the board to consider looking at other solutions rather than this blanket change of the zoning.
Okay, thank you for
And I know
that.
it's just to that R2A district, but as it was brought up as well, you know, the question of should this also be done in the other R2 districts? I wouldn't want to see this become a slippery slope and change and reduce the ability for 2-family homes in some of the other areas as well. If we did it there, why not, you know, do it here?
So,
I think there's other ways to achieve our goals.
understood. So,
Can I just speak to that for a second, Mayor?
sure, yes, please.
So that has not been proposed in any way. I think it was brought up as an idea. That would require more additional study because the R2 districts are quite different than the R2A district, which is clearly centered along Bedford Road. The R2 districts are more diffuse. There's more streets involved. So I think they're just different. And any sense of changing the placement or allowance for 2-family homes would need to be studied pretty significantly in those zones.
No doubt.
Thanks. And I did see that in the writing where they said, you know, we would need to do further study.
All right, is there any further comment from anyone in the room or on Zoom? For a variety of reasons, it's our intent to adjourn the public hearing but not to close it until our next board meeting, which is on Monday, October 10.
Actually, it's that
Hold
Thursday.
it. Yeah, no, I'm mixing my holiday week, right. It's Columbus Day is the 10th, so Thursday, October 13th. So, and it's our intention then to close the public hearing at our next meeting, Thursday, October 13, and we would be happy to entertain comments which could be received via letter or email to you, Eric?
Yep, or Alyssa. Yep, they can send it to me, administrator.
Administrator at pleasantville-ny.gov.
Yep.
So is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing to reopen it on Thursday, October 13th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. All right. On to the next subject. Thank you, Peter.
Take care, Peter.
Back to the resolutions. Let me get to them and I will share my screen. Okay. Paul, 281.
Result that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 12, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Nicole, 282.
Okay. Whereas the system for storage and safeguarding of non-emergency property and evidence in the police department is inadequate due to its size and lack of ventilation, and whereas Section 7.1 of the New York State Law Enforcement Accreditation Program standards require higher levels of security for high-value items kept in the custody of police, and whereas the Pleasantville Police Department seeks to address these issues by relocating the evidence room to the basement of Village Hall in what has been a storage area. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Pleasantville hereby authorizes the creation of a capital account for the relocation of the police department evidence room and approves the allocation of $15,000 from general fund balance for the completion of the project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 283.
Whereas portions of the Nanahagan Brook Wall are in need of repair and reconstruction due to erosion caused by the 854 acres of watershed that drain through the channel, and whereas cost estimates indicate a project to reconstruct the segment of wall will cost $700,000, which includes expenses related to required permitting and approvals, now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the creation of the Nanahagan Brook Wall reconstruction project and approves the allocation of $700,000 from the general fund balance for the project.
I have a quick question. Is there a
Well, hold it.
secret?
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Second.
Okay.
Is there a secret process for this?
Likely to be a type 2 because it's a reconstruction, but it is an Army Corps of Engineer waterway.
Even though it's hard to see, it's navigable by the rubber ducks for that periodic swim team fundraiser, but
So
not navigable by anything else.
Categorized on you learn a new
So-
thing every time.
yeah, it will be quite the permitting process and review process to get the
All right.
permits involved.
And let me also say that the smaller item we just talked about for the police evidence locker and this are proposed to be funded from cash.
Right.
Because I think we have sought and been successful to avoid bonding where we can and in reasonable circumstances, and this reflects that. And so the net effect to the taxpayer of this significant project is that it will cost quite a bit less money than if we were required to borrow the money.
Right, and just to note too, this project was discussed during our budget process and was part of the capital plan, which was
Right.
approved.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Where
Michael.
Michael.
Isn't that the one I just did? I just
Oh, no,
read?
no, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
you just did. We're back to Paul.
Paul.
So without David here, it's hard to keep track. Feels like there ought to be two people.
I lost my number. Was it 284?
You want to be two
right?
people?
284.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
284, okay. Whereas the Village of Pleasantville will be installing 2 dual-port electric vehicle charging stations serving 4 parking spaces in Memorial Plaza, and whereas the operation of these stations require the appropriate budgeting for related revenues and expenses. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Village of Board of Trustees hereby authorizes amending the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget to establish expense and revenue lines to support electric vehicle charging stations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty routine. Eric, do you have a sense for when those stations appear?
On Monday, we are going out with ChargePoint for them to take a look at the pads and the electrical that's out there. So within the next couple of weeks, we did get delivery of the units.
Uh-huh.
We're just confirming everything that we got delivered is here and required. But I would say within the next month.
Great.
It's exciting.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
is,
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Now, Nicole, 285.
All right.
You always
Mock.
get these.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending 2023 is listed below. I got to sit in your chair last time. That was pretty
Yeah.
fun.
You want to? We can
Okay. Budget transfer of the general fund, $4,000 from contingency to electricity EV utilities, $1,000 from contingency to electricity EV software, $2,000 from contingency transfer to capital for the Memorial Plaza Civic Space. Appropriate fund balance of the general fund, $15,000 transfer to capital for a police evidence room project, $20,000 transfer to capital for Manville Road corridor project local funds, $700,000 transfer to capital for the Nanahagan Brook stormwater project. Increased revenue and expense of the capital fund, $15,000 interfund transfer from general fund the Police Evidence Room Project, $20,000 interfund transfer from general fund for the Manville Road Corridor Project, $2,000 interfund transfer from general fund for the Memorial Plaza Civic Space, and $700,000 interfund transfer from general fund for the Nanahaven Brook Stormwater Project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? Pretty straightforward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. 286, Michael.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated September 29th, 2022 for fiscal year 2023, covering check numbers 105091 to 105211, General Fund $147,491.71, Water Fund $11,616.67, Capital Fund $230,195.27, Refuse Fund $19,678.38 for a total of $408,982.03.
Is there a second?
Second.
Payment of claims is attached. You can click into it on Novus Agenda if you are so inclined. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Paul, 287.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Chantel White, Recreation Assistant, Panther Club, effective September 13th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 288.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Isaiah Jordan and Mary K. Daniels, Recreation Assistant, Job Class Code 0269 with an hourly rate of $20, Budget Code A730.101, Panther Club, effective August 30th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome Isaiah and Mary. Michael, 289.
Whereas King's Crown Wine, located on Washington Avenue, is seeking permission to utilize village right-of-way and 3 parking spaces, 22, 25, and 26, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in support of the event that will run from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And whereas the Police Department has reviewed the request and see no further issue, now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board hereby approves the use of the village right-of-way and 3 parking spaces on Washington Avenue, 22, 25, and 26, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the King's Crown Wine event.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty straightforward. Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. I hope it's a successful event. Again, that's Saturday, October 8th. The event is 1 to 4. 290, Paul.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes Police Chief Eric Gusner to attend the Police Associated Addiction and Recovery Initiative PARI conference scheduled from November 13th, 2022 to November 15th, 2022 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 291, Nicole.
Whereas there are presently pending before the New York State Supreme Court County of Westchester tax certiorari proceedings entitled Matters of, it's Matters, right?
Yes.
Of One Campus Drive Associates LLC versus the assessor of the Village of Pleasantville et al. Superior Court Westco. Do I have to read the index
No,
numbers?
you-
Okay, I'm going to skip that part. Whereas these
Honestly, I
proceedings,
think you can just report the whereas once you start that the Village Board of Trustees has obtained the advice.
Okay. Okay. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees has obtained the advice and assistance of its counsel, Keenan Bean PC, with respect to the proposed terms of settlement and duly considered same. And whereas pursuant to these terms of settlement, the 2021 and 2022 assessments of the tax parcels involved in these proceedings will be reduced. And whereas as a result, Village of Pleasantville tax funds will be due in an amount equaling approximately $81,779.81, which is comprised of $64,744.45 applicable to prior tax year 2022 and $17,035.36 applicable to an overpayment of current tax year 2023. Whereas outstanding 2023 village tax's second installment levied upon these parcels will be reduced to $0. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees authorizes the settlement of these proceedings to adjust the Village of Pleasantville assessments of these tax parcels for assessment years 2021 and 2022 as follows.
I think it can be as further stated.
As further stated in the record.
Okay, with that abbreviation of the
Yes.
long
yes.
language.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this matter is a tax reduction for the former Bank of New York emergency backup facility, which is up behind Foxwood at the top of the hill. Long and interesting history to the parcel, but it has been owned for many years by the Bank of New York and largely unoccupied, but kept active as a potential emergency backup site. They haven't used it in any significant way since the weeks around the 9/11 tragedy. But it has, in the last couple of years, been sold, and it was sold at a substantially lower price than the assessment, recognizing the fact that it is a rather unusual parcel and will be subject to some likely redevelopment. I know lots of folks have been aware of the fact that that parcel is in play, and we don't know what will be proposed for it, but we do anticipate the likelihood that at some point someone is going to propose to buy it, and they will come forward, let us know what their intended use is, and I think it more likely than not that the use will be proposed. The use that will be proposed will require a tax change, a zoning change. So that'll be a long, complicated process, but I just want to point out to folks that the change in state of this property from an active corporate facility to an empty ghost of a building has a significant impact now, which is this $81,000 refund we need to make on the tax years 2021 and 2022. That number is going to be substantially larger when you look at the tax refund that will be very likely generated through the Town of Mount Pleasant challenge that would cover the school and town tax. So we're all in this together, and when one parcel pays quite a bit less taxes, everybody else ends up paying a little bit more, and so it just underscores the need to maintain a reasonable base for the taxes. So, comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 292, Michael.
Whereas the property owner of 68 Skytop Drive, Pleasantville, New York, which is identified on the tax assessment map as parcel 99.15-2.80-89.2, a license to maintain a stone wall within the village right-of-way on Skytop Drive. And whereas the licensee seeks to construct a new stone wall approximately 2 feet to 3 feet high along the length of the driveway is 48 feet long and approximately 15 feet of the driveway is located in the village right-of-way. And whereas the Board of Trustees reviewed and discussed this request at the work session on September 12, 2022, and is in favor of entering into a licensee agreement, now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to execute the license agreement attached hereto with the property owner of 68 Skytop Drive to construct and maintain a stone wall within the village right-of-way.
Is there a second?
Second, it seems like there's a verb missing in that first
Yeah.
sentence
I agreed.
before a license.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Seeks a license to maintain?
Yeah.
Is that, can we add the
Yep.
word seeks? That is acceptable to the mover and the seconder.
Yes.
Pretty straightforward request. Attached all the details. This has been looked at by our DPW group and believed to be appropriate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 293. Mike.
I think it's me, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
Paul. Right, that was Mike.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village court to apply for funding from the Justice Court Assistance Program JCAP grant and 2022-2023 grant cycle up to $30,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Our village court has been successful in getting grants for these programs, and in fact, the tables we sit at in an earlier year were the result of that. So pleased to think there might be an opportunity to support the court in this way. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. 294, Nicole.
Whereas on September 12th, 2022, the Board of Trustees authorized the village elections to be held on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2023, and whereas on September 12th, 2021, the Board of Trustees approved 3 polling locations: Village Recreation Department located at 48 Marble Avenue, Emmanuel Lutheran Church located at 197 Manville Road, and Hayes Host Firehouse located at 134 Bedford Road. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the village 2023 elections for the purpose of filling 2 trustee positions and the village justice position.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty straightforward. We remain on a March schedule for village elections, which I personally believe has been a great benefit to us, as opposed to the alternative of switching village elections to the regular November election day. It has allowed the community to remain focused on local elections on a different day than the day that their would otherwise be tangled up with regional and national elections. So that election, as reported in this resolution, will take place on Tuesday, March 21. 2 trustee positions will be up. Nicole and Paul are in expiring terms, and the village justice as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay, that is the last of our resolutions. Is there any comment from a member of the board, or is there any comment on any subject from a member of the public? Nobody's in the room. I see no hands raised among the attendees. We appreciate your attention. Congratulations again to our newly appointed detective, Jonathan Smith. We look forward to a good and long career here in the village of Pleasantville for you. As reported, our next regular meeting is not Monday the 10th because it is a holiday, and instead it is Thursday the 13th. So there's a certain symmetry to that because we're here on Thursday. However, after that, we're back to our regular Monday world. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Good evening. Good night. See you on Thursday, October 13th.